And this god guy, we'll be going over Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. This guy is going to be kind of switched up a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more full of content because Hades is a great tank. He's also great at dealing damage with recent patches. So I'm going to have multiple stuff to go over in different parts. So it might be a little bit longer, but it's going to have a lot of information for you guys. It's going to have a lot of education for you guys if you want to get into playing Hades, and hopefully this guide will help you out. So without further ado, let's just dive into it and get right into his skills and his item builds and how to use them in actual gameplays. So I hope you guys enjoy. Hades' passive ability is called Blight. His normal staff attacks apply a debuff to the enemy that's called Blight. It stays on the target for 5 seconds and it can be refreshed. If Blight is on an enemy when casting any of Hades' other abilities, it will cause an extra effect to happen from those abilities. Hades' first ability is called Death from Below. Hades will dive underneath the ground and hitting any enemies in the area where he pops up underneath his ground target. If the enemies are blighted, it will slow them. If they are not blighted, it will apply a blight to them. Hades' second ability is called Shroud of Darkness. Hades silences all enemies in the cone in front of him for up to 2 seconds. If the enemy is blighted, they are also feared. This ability consumes the blight debuff on the enemy though. Hades' third ability is called Devour Souls. Hades will slam the ground around him, doing damage to the enemies. If the enemies are blighted, the enemies will explode and do extra damage to each other. When they explode, Hades and all his allies will be healed for a portion of the damage. Hades' ultimate is called Pillar of Agony. Hades will start pulling all enemies within the area towards him while doing damage to them. Hades also gains increased protection against magical and physical damage while he's in his ult. If the enemies are blighted, they will have their physical and magical protection reduced. So I'm going to be going over 3 types of builds with Hades. The last one being kind of, it depends on what's in your lane type thing, but we're just going to go through it. This first one is my mid lane build. It's basically whenever I want to go mid lane, I want to build max damage, and I want to just basically snowball the hell out of that lane and completely take their person out of the lane. So I start off with Doom Orb, get Doom Orb maxed out, then get Boost of the Magi, only get that 2 stacks, then Warlock Sash, Rod of Tahuti, Void Stone, and Obsidian Shard. I need to get maximum damage and get the stacks from the Doom Orb and the Warlock Sash to get even more magic power. Rod of Tahuti will just exponentially increase that by 25%. Void Stone gives me a nice aura where it reduces the enemy's protection to magic. So when they're in my ult, they're already getting a debuff on them from my Void Stone, plus it gives me a decent amount of power, and it gives me some magic protection against any magic users they may have. And then the Obsidian Shard, it has really good magic power, and it just penetrates through their magic armor, and it'll just even do that much more damage to them. So that's what I like to use as mid laner. It just is basically a full snowball effect, and it lets me pretty much dominate the game, dominate that middle lane from the start, and then if I can do well, I can just basically go around, roam, and gank, and just do work on everyone else inside the game. This is my side lane damage build for Hades. I don't build any stackable items because I don't like to fight with my lane mate for stacks if possible, so that's why I don't have either the Doom Orb or the Warlock Sash on here, but this is still a solid build. I like to build 2 stacks of the Boots of the Magi. Then I get the Spear of the Magus, which is a very solid, cheap item that has a lot of damage on it and a lot of penetration. Then the Pythagorean piece, that lifesteal you get from that combined with your 3 when you have someone on Blight will just get you even more health back. So that's really good for lane sustainability. Then I get the Rod of Tahuti, obviously, to get a lot of magic power, boosting my magic power through its passive. Void Stone, obviously, when they're in my ult, debuffs them, makes them take more magic damage and gives me some magic protection. And then Obsidian Shard, just to kind of penetrate through their magic armor some more. And it has some decent magic power on there also. So that's what I like to build for side lane if possible. And yeah, obviously this is not a set in stone type thing. You can use whatever you like, experiment with other things. This just works best for me. This is what I've experimented with. This is what actually works best for me. As far as abilities go with both these damage builds, I like to build Girdle of Might and Creeping Curse, but obviously if there's a lot of CC on the enemy team, I would switch out the Creeping Curse for a Purification Beast to get out of the enemy CC and get away and keep myself safe and keep myself in the game. And next we have Hades tank builds. It's kind of hard to plan a tank build because it's basically tank builds properly are made on the fly, basically on how the game is going for the enemy team, how the game is going for your team. So that being said, I'm just going to put up my favorite items I like to use. First up, you see all the physical resist items I like to use. I'm going to put up all the magic resist items I like to use next. Basically, you do your best to study what each item does and plan accordingly depending on what's going on with the enemy team. If an On-Thur or Cupid is their carry, you really want to get high the melee line first because it's going to do damage back to them as they're doing damage to you. Or say they have like a high magic dealer on their team that's doing magic to you. You want to get Center of the Gaia because that'll give you magic protection and HP and MP regen. So it's kind of you have to play with it. Kind of have to go based on how the game is going and judge from there. As far as abilities, while I am tanking, I always pick up Aegis Amulet and Purification Beads. It just helps keep me from keeping me CC'd and also help keep me alive in the battle more so I can tank for my team, obviously. Just a quick disclaimer for these in-game laning tips. It's going to be the same for Hades no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing mid lane, whether you're playing damage, or whether you're playing tank. You're going to be doing the exact same thing no matter what. The only thing that's going to be different is your item build. So obviously when you're building damage, you're going to do more damage when you're doing this. If you're building tank, you can just you can last longer in the lane. You can take more hits as a tank. That's going to be pretty much it. So just keep that in mind whenever we're doing this. I'm not going to go like, oh, this is how you do mid lane, this is how you do side lane damage, this is how you do side lane tank. It's going to be the same. It's the same strat the whole way through. So just keep that in mind whenever we're doing this. And this is how you basically should play Hades. It's basically how to play Hades and kind of switch it up based on your game style and the situation in the game, obviously, and go on from there. So when I'm playing Hades, I like to start harassing right away. As soon as I hit level 2, I get my Death from Below, and I start going at them with my Death from Below and Devouring Souls. It's an easy way to get some pokes on them, and you don't have to really worry about your health, because if you're going at that minion line, you're going to get your health back whenever you pop your Devouring Souls anyways, so don't worry about your health when you're doing it. Just keep going at them, keep poking them, keep getting their life down. Hopefully you'll make them recall back before level 5. If not, you'll get them poked down enough that when you go to pop your ult, they're good to go right there. When using Hades' ultimate as a tank, you want to be laning with someone who has a really good high AoE damage, whether through their ultimate or just through their abilities. That's why I like to lane with a Zeus. Freya is also a good character to lane with. Anyone with an AoE damage. But basically, you want to time your ult with theirs, so you go in, you pop your ult, you keep them sucked in, and then they pop their ultimate. In this game that you're seeing, I'm laning with Zeus, so we try and pop our ultimates at the same time. Obviously, situations arise where they aren't on the same cooldown, and we just kind of go on from there. These are two good situations on where you kind of want to play with your sound kind of up, so you can basically sound whore where the enemies are going to be at. Loki has really loud abilities, and Kali is pretty loud when she pops her abilities too. They were both going for green buff at 2 separate times, and I ended up being able to go underneath the ground with my Death from Below, pop up in the green buff area, and since they both don't really have an escape, I was able to take them both out and take the green buff from them. Another key thing to remember when you're playing Hades is that if you get yourself caught in a situation where there's 2 enemies beating down on you, pop your ult. You take a lot less damage when you're in your ultimate, and you might actually get a kill out of it, like I just did on this Loki, who was too low of health. He shouldn't have chased me, but that was his mistake, and not mine right there. This is an instance where if you know you're going to get a kill, don't be afraid to tower dive. Go through the tower, take a couple hits from the tower, and get that kill you need. In this instance, I almost got a double kill out of it. Unfortunately, the Khalid just almost got away from me. But I negated her ult because I was in my ultimate myself. A huge thing to remember as Hades whenever you're playing as a tank is to initiate those team fights. Get in the middle of those team fights. As a tank, you are meant to take damage. You're building yourself to take damage throughout the whole game. And late game, it really does show that you can really take some damage. So you really want to initiate those team fights. You really want to get in the middle of all of them. So your team doesn't get beat down on. 9 times out of 10, whenever you're playing people, they're going to focus on the first person that dies them. So if you're the tank and you dive that enemy team, or if you dive a couple of people, like 1 or 2 people on that enemy team, they're going to focus on you. And then your team behind you, your actual damage dealers, are just going to pick them off as they're beating on you. You have enough protection that you can survive a good 30 seconds of attacks while your team beats down on them. So just remember that. Especially late game, Fire Giant buff, lots of items built. You can even dive underneath tower and take very little damage, as I just did right there. So to wrap up Hades, he is a solid god to play, both as tank and damage now with recent patches where they boosted his actual damage through his abilities. It just all depends on your playstyle and the needs of your team. When laning in a side lane, try and pair up with a god that does AoE damage, Zeus, Freya, Cupid does well with him. Um, Loki now is a good god to pair with him. Just any god that can do either quick burst damage. Basically, any god will lane well with Hades. So just mess around with. If you're playing with friends, mess around what combinations will work best. If you really like Hades, see what friends like to play with you. I suggest trying, if you haven't tried it, I suggest trying Zeus or Freya. Those are both two solid gods that you can put together with him. Ao Kuang is a good one. Ra is also a good one. I mean, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of different lane combinations there. So just mess around, try it out. Try out different item builds. And honestly, this is just the basics. You gotta have to find the playstyle for yourself. Not some people like certain different things. Like I like Fatalis on gods. Some people don't like Fatalis on gods. It's just, it's up to you. It's how you like your playstyle to be, and everything like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. Please leave a comment below, letting me know if this guide helped you out at all. If you guys enjoy it, if there's any ways I can make it better. I'm always looking to try to make these guys better. And I will talk to you guys next time. I'm not sure who I'm going to do next. I have an idea, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.